just real quickly, a view there. The one on the far left, of course, is the client view, and as you would expect, that we've all chatted, trying to buy something before. You basically ask a question and you see the answer, and that's pretty much what your client does. The staff, on the other hand, obviously sees that same thing, but they've got a couple of extra icons you can see up there where they can say they want to, copy the chat over to an existing ticket or actually create a new ticket and bring the chat data over. So not unlike that you go forward. Then, of course, if they're going to give you chat, they figured they would go on and provide you with some very nice dashboards right out of the box in Winter 15 to support what you're doing with chat. And, here is where, somebody really needs, it's going to effectively use chat. This is where somebody needs to spend some time reviewing the metrics that we've gotten off of that chat to see if we can identify users who are coming into chat but leaving before the chat session either starts or before it ends, and really start to understand why that is. Or we need to identify, which categories are having a higher abandonment rate. How come we seem to get through the chat session when we're talking about email, but when we're talking about application access issues, people just tend to give up and go away? Again, it's going to help you fine-tune your chat sessions to make it even more efficient, therefore giving you the cost benefits we talked about on some of the earlier screens. And this one's really important here. Review the wait time and chat length across all the different categories to do a couple of things. One, find out how effective it is, but two, maybe we need to increase the number of people that are available for different categories of chat, because if people are having to wait too long, they're just going to what? They're going to close the dialog box, pick up the phone, call the service desk, which is exactly what we were trying to avoid in the first place there. Down at the bottom, if you roll this out to different segments within your organization, i.e. accounts, let's find out if some divisions, some accounts are having a higher abandonment rate than others, and again, seek to understand why that is and take some corrective action there. Again, this is more on the chat duration from the staff perspective and seeing what you can do there. And then, again, chat duration by the category. So, BMC very smartly went on and figured these were the important metrics to kind of do, built the dashboards for you. As with any dashboard within Remedy, of course, you can add additional views here. You can clone these and change things about them and rename them, and just like you can in anything else to do with reporting and dashboards in Remedy.
Hey, Roger.
So yes, Dick.
Roger, let me just stop you there for a second, because I really thought that was interesting, the whole discussion that you had about chat, because I think that it's relatively new. I mean, we don't have a tremendous amount of experience with chat or the specific best practices around chat, and the reason I mentioned that is because I just recently, I was working with a home software package, and I needed some help, and all they had available was chat. So I get it. It's very inexpensive to chat, but I think that when I was talking over the chat feature, the person that was on the other end must have been working with 2 or 3 people at the same time, and the response was just terrible. So I would type something in, and I might wait, a minute, which is just an eternity. When if you have somebody on the phone, you get the answer typically right there. You don't have to wait 30 seconds to hear back from somebody. So I really like this. I understand what it's doing, and I see real cost benefits here. But I think you have to balance that with customer sat as well. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that's why BMC went on and spent so much time creating these things, because realizing if everybody has the experiences you had where you're waiting 1 or 2 minutes between a question and an answer, people are going to abandon it, and you're never going to get the potential benefits out of it. So that's a great real-world example of why studying your metrics of the chat is going to become critical to the success of your organization.
Right, and we just had somebody respond in the Q&A box, and they had a comment around this, that if you chat with someone that does not know anything, what good is it? And that's the other thing that I found, is that in this particular question, I think they were just cutting and pasting from a knowledge article somewhere, which didn't really answer the question. So it was just a colossal waste of time. And I think that if companies are going to roll this out, they have to be pretty careful that they have somebody that's really good at this and knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's why the way they designed this in Remedyforce, remember, we'll have certain individuals that are available based on what the chat category is to make sure that we've got somebody there who really knows the subject matter and is not just doing a lookup and a copy and a paste, because you're right, that becomes very obvious very quick if you do more than one or two questions.
Okay, thank you.
Great point, Dick. Thank you. So around the improved staff productivity, I'm very excited about this one, that you've now got a console dashboard to let me see everything. You know, we've always had the nice queues, and we could flip from the incident queue to the task queue to the change queue. But, you know, unless you got totally out of the console and went over to a dashboard, you really didn't have that ability to kind of see that. Well, they've now brought this back, and when I was, you know, previewing my slides before this, I thought I'm going to date myself, but for those of you who may have been around since the initial releases of Remedyforce, if you recall back in, you know, the first 2 or 3 versions of it, we actually had a dashboard for staff that would let you configure multiple quick views and thus stack up 3 or 4 of those in a single pane of glass. And I typically would have incidents in one and changes in another and high priorities in another and incidents by category in another. But that went away when we moved to the Salesforce visual pages as opposed to the old stuff. And I think a lot of people miss that. Well, basically now we've got that back, but with the proper Salesforce imaging, the Salesforce UIs that you would want to have. So just real quickly, now within your Remedyforce console, when you go into the Remedyforce console, you know, we've always had the ability to look at tasks or problems, as I mentioned, or incidents or whatever. We've now got a new entry called My Dashboard. And as you can see here, what it lets you do, and this is by individual staff person, right? So everybody can roll it to their own flavor. I could, in this example, have 4 different quick views displaying the things I'm interested in, all in a single screen. And, of course, all of these are hot links. If I needed to drill down on this ticket, I just double-click it and I'm working in it. And when I come back, I still got my view of all the things that I'm interested in here. So, you know, again, they're even using the same nomenclature. It's the quick views and dashboards. So anything that you've got out there ticket-wise, right? Incident, service requests, change requests, problems, tasks, releases were our primary objects within Remedyforce. So single page to monitor and work there. And, you know, you can always have some filters out there to, you know, as I said, each staff member can configure what they want to see. So I think this is going to be a very welcome addition by most folks out there, and especially if you've been with the product for a long time. This is just showing you an example of how you go in and configure it to be the things you're interested in doing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. We do give you the option, as we've always done in quick views, to have things color-coded. So, you know, typically when we used to do that, we'd take the incident tab and we'd color-code the high priority incidents is red, the mediums is yellow, and the lows is green, or whatever color scheming you want to do. Anything that makes it easier for that staff member to work and get to the information they need very quickly is a good thing for everybody along the way. So they're just trying to make it very, very user-friendly. And I also mentioned that, you know, there had been a request from lots of different users out there that they wish there was some kind of reporting around, you know, how many licenses, kind of, you know, how much are they being used, who's using them. And so they just basically created a simple license usage metrics report, and you can see at the bottom some samples of what you get, and it just makes it a little bit easier for you to keep track of, do I need more licenses, you know, who's actually using the system, who's not using the system, and typical license management there. As always, though, Remedy has been very, very good. BMC has been very, very good about listening to the user community and trying to add some of those in every release. And again, they've done that here. So one of the things was, you know, lookup filters and self-service and service requests. As you really roll out and get beyond, you know, 8 or 10 service requests, it can become a little daunting to actually find the one you want. So why not give it a simple search criteria to very easily let that end user get to what they're looking at? Again, let's empower that end user as much as possible. We've got some preview panes out there as we're building these things. So let me see, if I do this, then what's that going to look like? We've got the ability now, some improvements to service level. We can now base it on the customer or the account's business hours, right? that was kind of hard to do before. And we can also now define the SLAs by the user account. So if I'm located in the Midwest and I'm talking to my service desk in the East Coast, it can make adjustments to the fact that, but I'm over here in the East Coast, so therefore that's the timing that I want to log in the clock that we wanted to use. And another one that's been asked for quite a long time is, I'm sitting here on the service desk. I want the ability, if somebody calls in and they're not in the queue, I don't want to have to get out of my incident form, go to the Remedy admin, go to manage users, go add the user, then try to come back and refresh the screen. We're going to give you a link right on the form you're in to let's create a new client right from there. Again, that one's going to be very, very, very well deceased. And along those same line of the most requested that I've seen is when we're in email conversation, and as we all know, that means I'm in an incident, I say I want to send an outbound email. As we know, it links that email to the ticket so that we can have that conversational linkage. We can now have more than one from address if you want to enable that for your organization. I'll show you a screenshot of that in a minute. So that's kind of neat. The other thing they did is in building service request definitions, not difficult to do, but you got to kind of remember exactly how to do it. So there's a new little Getting Start tab to kind of help you figure out, okay, what's the service, what are the templates you're going to group together, what are the questions in the input. So trying to make that a little bit easier to do that. And then once you build a service request, a lot of times there are a series of questions or pick list or something that you may have the customer doing. And now instead of, if I decide I don't like the order they're in, I basically got to delete and redo one and get it where it needs to be. They've basically given you some ability to do some sorting or move up, move down in there. And then last but not least, it was really great when they created the Remedyforce Administration tab, but it's gotten rather large in all of the content that's in there now. So sometimes you scratch your head and say, well, which tab is this under? So why not give a search button for that? So if you take a look at it, here's that example on the multiple emails. So, typically you've got a single one that you use for everybody. So now we can set it up by a profile, but we can also set it up to say, when you're in email conversation, and that should look familiar to most of us, you now could pick from the defined allowable froms that you want this email conversation to be. So some may be back and forth between the vendor, some may be back and forth between the client, whatever makes sense for your organization. And then again, this is just simply, okay, how do you do it? Should everybody get to use this, or are you going to selectively use it? The recommending is you either do it or you don't do it, and kind of keep it for everybody, or it gets a little hard to manage there. This is an example of the questions in a service request where we had, in this case, some pick list values that we wanted here. And as you can see, there's actually a little sort button now that you can use, or as I mentioned, you can come over and just use the move up, move down. I mean, small thing, but it makes the people who have to admin these systems, it makes their life a little bit easier, and therefore they can more quickly respond to a request from the user community of how they would like to see something. So that's kind of the improvement for staff and lower overhead of the product there. This is the example again, as we know. This is you're obviously on the Remedy Admin tab. You have Configure Application, Manage User, Manage Objects, Applications. So now why not just do a search from there? You would probably want to do a little bit better definition than just putting con, because you really would not want it to return that many options in there. But if I want to type in there service request, it will limit me to either defining the surface definitions here under config, which is where that is, and not making it very difficult for me to get there. So a good little enhancement there.